Good morning, everyone. Swaymoney here, and welcome back to another episode of Hack My Labor, the Starbase tutorial series where we keep slapping more stuff on our starter labor module and then praying everything still works when we're done. Today, we're going to be tackling another highly requested upgrade with an asteroid avoidance system. I feel like I need to add a small disclaimer here. No asteroid avoidance system will be 100% effective, and this one is pretty simple, so stay careful out there when you leave the safe zone. Just a quick reminder to leave a like here if you've been enjoying the series, and consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. Also, if you want to hang out live, I stream every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on Twitch. Now let's get to work. We're going to need to pull apart the front of our ship so we can mount some new hardpoints and rangefinders. We'll be using 10 lasers in total, so get yourself 10 device hardpoint and 10 rangefinder via crafting or the auction house. Now just use your bolt tool and remove all the plating from the front of your ship. We'll also need to remove most of the plating on these sides. We don't really need this maneuver thruster anymore, so we'll get rid of that too, which will help us get the power to our lasers. So we should look like this on both sides of our ship now. Next, we're going to craft ourselves 8 beam straight 384 centimeter and place them horizontally across each of the beams that are already present. We should have 4 on each side, and they should fit perfectly from the beam on the inside corner to the edge of the beam that's sticking out on the other end. Go ahead and weld these together. Just make sure the beams line up with the existing beams. You might have to get up close to adjust them 1 or 2 snap points in some places so they line up right. Now we're going to run our power. We're going to be using the magic of ducts for everything here. For starters, we can flip these corner ducts so they wrap around the beam. You might not be able to tell right now, but there will be a gap under the duct on the wrapped around side. Put a single bolt into the duct to keep it in place. Now a 192 centimeter duct should fit into the vertical beam and slide underneath the corner duct you just placed. Snap it all the way to the top plate. Add a 144 centimeter duct below that first duct, and then a single 12 centimeter duct on the very bottom. So you should have ducts fully covering these inside vertical beams. Now we're just going to fill in the horizontal beams. 2 192 centimeter ducts should fit perfectly into each beam. We only need 1 duct going through the middle, so don't worry about the beam with the corner duct. Make sure you snap these ducts all the way up against the vertical ducts and bolt them all down. Now we're ready to start mounting some hardpoints. I have a great tip that will probably be essential for you to line up these hardpoints with the beams correctly without ripping your hair out while fighting with snap points. The game is most likely going to pick the edge of the duct we just installed as a good snap point for some of these hardpoints. This is dumb. In order to get things to snap where you want them to, we'll need to convince the game that there's a better snap point. You can use a small plate to do this. I just used a spare 48x48 plate that I already had in my station inventory. Now you can place the extra plate perpendicular to the hard point against the beam, and then the hard point should snap against the newly placed plate. You don't have to bolt it in or anything. You're just convincing that hard point that there's a better place to snap than the silly spots it keeps picking. Then you can just pick up that plate and move it to the next spot. Do this to line up all the hard points along the edges of the beams. You can test these hard points for data to make sure you install the ducts correctly. You'll notice that you don't need to bolt the ducts to whatever you're trying to power. As long as they're touching the back of the hard point, you're all set. Now, in order to keep things lined up easily, let's reinstall some plates. We can fill the inner sides again since we just needed access to that duct and the beams. Place a 72 by 144 centimeter plate along the very top and bottom edges. We'll fill in this big hole with the floor pieces you removed earlier, but we can do that later. We're going to place the middle hard point 72 centimeters in from the sides, so place a 48 by 72 centimeter plate horizontally snapped to the side plates you just installed. You want to make sure it extends past the beam and lines up with the plates on the side. An extra benefit of installing this plate is the last hard point should snap into the right spot a lot easier. Line up the remaining hard points so they're sticking over the edge of the ship a little bit. Since these rangefinders are going to be protecting the mining lasers and generators, I wanted them to protrude a little bit. Manually bolt these down to the beam with 4 bolts apiece. That's all the important work done already. We just need to install the rangefinders and cover this all up again. We can start with 2 144 by 288 plates on each side of our ship to fill in most of this. We're going to need to have a few more beams on the sides in order to have places to bolt the rest of our plates, so craft yourself 4 96 centimeter beams and 6 24 centimeter beams. We can fill half of these in vertically along each edge. Now we have a place to bolt 2 72 centimeter plates between our hard points on each side. Next we can fill in the top and bottom with a couple 36 by 144 and 12 by 36 plates. The last little strip on the inside corner will fit 2 12 by 144 pieces nicely. For the sides, we can ramp 8 36 by 96 plates around each side. We can finish off the edges with a 36 by 36, a 24 by 144, and a 12 by 24 plate for each hole that still needs filling. Lastly, let's place the 2 thin floor panel pieces you removed from the sides earlier back onto the sides to fill in these holes. Everything's looking pretty good now. Go ahead and install a rangefinder onto each of our new hardpoints and auto bolt them all down. Now we can rename some fields and get ready for some YOLO. Most of the fields are going to be the same for all the rangefinders. Rename all of the rangefinder on state fields to be AAS to represent asteroid avoidance system. Set all of the rangefinder search length values to be 1000. Now we're going to name the rangefinder distance field for the lasers differently based on where the laser is located. The 2 middle lasers on top will be named AASU for up. The 2 on the bottom will be named AASD for down. Then the 3 on the left will be named AASL, and the 3 on the right will be named AASR. Make sure you name the sides based on sitting in the pilot seat and not looking at the front of your ship. While we're up here, we might as well add a button to our dashboard. Craft another control table 45 degree and hybrid button. I'm going to bolt this one behind our minor button, so I'll line it up, remove the minor button so I can bolt the control table in place, and then install both buttons. Rename the new button's button state field to be AAS and change the button style value to 1. Ready for the YOLO? We're out of space for another YOLO chip in the back, so craft yourself 2 extra YOLO racks and 2 extra 3-slot chip sockets, and just bolt them in under your current stack of racks. You can move some chips to these new racks, install a fresh chip in an empty socket, and get ready to write some YOLO. This script is pretty straightforward, but let's go through what it's doing. Line 1 just sets a bunch of local variables. We set RG to equal 1000, which will represent the range we want to activate our asteroid avoidance. This will probably always be 1000, but we can easily adjust this to a lower value while testing in smaller spaces. Then we set T to 100. This is the power we're going to give our thrusters when the AAS detects something. Then we set R, L, U, and D to 1 or 0 depending on if the corresponding laser's distance is less than our range. Since we use these checks more than once, this will save us some space on the next lines. Line 2, we set FCU right left to equal AAS multiplied by our thruster value and then multiplied by the rest of the line. We start that by multiplying R by -1, so this will be -1 if one of our right lasers were triggered or 0 if not. Then we add L to that, so this will be 1 if the left lasers were triggered. Also, if you're heading straight for an asteroid large enough to trigger both right and left lasers at the same time, this whole thing will be 0 since we'll have -1 plus 1. Because of that, we add 1 if R and L are both true. So to summarize, everything inside the parentheses will equal -1, 0, or 1 depending on which lasers were tripped, and we multiply that by our thruster value. Since we're setting FCU right-left, we'll activate the proper side thrusters, which will strafe our ship to the opposite side that we detected an asteroid. Lastly, line 3 is almost identical to line 2, except we're checking U and D instead of R and L. We set the FCU up-down value, which will fire the upper or lower thrusters that will cause our ship to gain or lose relative altitude. Before we leave the code, let's adjust the RG value so we can test inside the hangar here. 15 should be enough range without hitting random stuff outside. Now let's head to the front of the ship and turn on the AAS. You can use your body to trip the lasers and see your ship strafe towards the opposite direction, and then the thrusters should stop when you're no longer in the way. That's all there is to it. Remember that this is a pretty simple system, so I would definitely suggest you still pay attention and be ready to react if the asteroid avoidance system isn't able to move you out of the way quick enough. Don't forget to set RG back to 1000 when you're actually out in space. Thanks for watching. If this was helpful, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing so you don't miss the next video. I stream every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday if you want to hang out and chat with me live. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. But for now, please take it easy.